Hi there. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the I Take the Lead networking webinar, which is always free. And we do this every week, and it's brought to you by I Take the Lead, of course. I just wanted to share a little bit of information before we get on to, sorry, I'm trying to change my the screen share. Anyway, I just wanted to share a little bit of information about I Take the Lead. We are a Leads Group organization, membership driven, and we are in several states at this point. And we have a lot of our members who were able to be on this webinar today. Some could not make it. They RSVP'd with the idea of being able to get the replay. So at the end of the day, probably about 7 o'clock Pacific time, 7 or 8 o'clock Pacific time, you will all get the replay today of what's said today by Jeff Mays. And for those who aren't able to make it, they'll also get the replay as long as they RSVP. I just wanted to also let you know that for everybody except for our Portland area members, I always send out a newsletter Tuesday evening so that you get the information for the following week. Our Portland area members always get it in our weekly announcements. So I just want to let you know, if at some point you want to be taken off that newsletter, please just let me know, and I will gladly remove you. It's no problem. I'm really excited today because we have Jeff Mays, who is an insurance agent. He actually owns his own brokerage, and he's out of the Vancouver, Washington area, and he's going to be sharing what he's done to really make an impact as far as getting referrals for his business. I've known Jeff. Gosh, how long, Jeff? How long ago did?
It's close to 5 years, Becky.
Yeah. Jeff, I don't even remember what it was that you were doing. Oh, you were working with Bob Proctor at the time, weren't you?
I was doing coaching.
Absolutely, yes. And Jeff came to one of our meetings. I was really impressed. I asked him if he'd become one of our special guest speakers, and it's all been uphill since then. And I've watched Jeff decide what he wanted to do as time went on, but he still is a coach. He's a fabulous coach, and I love to hear his presentations. But at this time, I am going to turn it over to Jeff. He's going to share with us 5 key ways to get more leads, whether it's I Take the Lead or what it is. And then if we have time, I will ask him some questions. I'm going to okay the chat on the side, so feel free to ask questions. If and depending on what they are, I may stop Jeff, or I may wait till the end, but we can continue going until we get all the questions answered. So Jeff, I'm just going to turn it over to you.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you, Becky, for the introduction, and thanks everybody for being here. I'm really excited to share some thoughts for the new year and really get everybody off to the right start, and help you to grow your business this year and really help you to get things going in a way that might be different for some of you. It might just be a little bit of a tweak for others. But what I'd like to talk about is networking. And I know that's a big emphasis of what we're talking about on this call and on this weekly medley of things that we see every week that Becky puts on for us. And many thanks to I Take the Lead for sponsoring this event, because it's a place that we can all come and learn maybe something new, maybe just refresh what we're doing, but we get a little bit of knowledge and we gain, and that's something that's so important with any networking you do, is to get some knowledge. So I'd like to talk a little bit about growing a business and why you do different things. A lot of people in my business, in the insurance business, they spend a lot of money on leads. They go out and buy leads, and they're very easy to buy, and they're sometimes really expensive to buy, especially if you buy a lot of them and nobody buys from you. The return's not there. So I decided a couple of years ago to really focus on networking and to really start to understand how to make networking work. Now, I got to tell you, it didn't work at first, but it can work, and I've kind of discovered those keys. So let's talk about why networking. Why would we want to grow our business with networking as opposed to other ways to do it? And the first thing I'd like to bring up and talk about is that networking builds a local database. It really gets you going and helps you to find people locally that you can not only learn from, not only get referrals from, but most importantly, you can refer. And when you start referring, all of a sudden you realize you build these teams, these power partnerships that really become the basis of how it's going to work for you in the networking world. So this isn't about taking, it's about giving and taking, right? So it's a little bit different than sometimes what you might think about with networking. And then, what networking does when you do it right, when you build a team, when you get with those people that you see every week and really get to know them and they get to know, like, and trust you, is that you begin to build a sales team. The people that you network with not only become your friends, they not only become the people that you see once a week or more often, but they're the people that become your sales team. And you find yourself all of a sudden working with a dedicated sales team that multiplies every time that you speak at your group or every time that you work with your group. And then finally, it gives you ideas and feedback on your business. Becky brought up a point with me. I was doing something completely different than I am now 4 or 5 years ago. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that I decided that I really needed to go back and do something that worked differently in my local market. And what I found was, of course, that insurance was a great thing. But I got that feedback from the groups I was going to. I got that feedback from my sales team. They said, what you're doing right now isn't working for us. We can't refer to you. We can't promote your business because we don't know anybody that wants that. So by being able to have that feedback and getting some ideas and then playing with it for a while, I was able to come up with, this is how I'm going to reinvent what I'm doing to make sense so that my team can help me. So that feedback is really important. And the last thing that I think it really does, and it's really important why networking is better than some other things, and that is that you can get out and practice your public speaking and your presentation in a safe environment. That safe environment's so important because if you just go out and start talking to people on the street and you're expecting to get business out of it, it's really hard to do that, especially if your presentation isn't refined. Maybe you don't have quite the right pitch or the right idea yet. So when you practice with your group, you can change things around and get some input and have that safe, comfortable place to really start happening. The whole thing happens and it's great because it starts to work for you. So a little bit about my story. I started networking locally about 5 years ago. I'd been in corporate America. I'd been working for a large corporation in the Portland area, and I lived in Vancouver. It's only 10 or 11 miles to where I worked from where I live, but I didn't know anybody in Vancouver. I really, I knew a few people maybe I'd see at the grocery store, a couple neighbors, but I went to work at 6 o'clock in the morning and I'd leave the office about 6 o'clock at night, and I didn't know anybody locally. I just had not built that after 7 or 8 years living where I lived. And when I decided to get out of that corporate world, I decided I had to do something different. I had to start to build a team. I had to come back to my local neighborhood and really start to know people and get to know people. That's what took me to I Take the Lead. And as Becky says, I went to a few meetings and I found some groups, I Take the Lead and others, that really made sense for me. And I think that replugging in and finding people that you can get to know, that you can really learn about their business, all of a sudden you're able to help your friends that you do have and meet a whole lot more friends. Well, jump ahead a couple, 3 years later, and I'm in the insurance business. And I'm doing what people had told me to do. I was buying leads. I was calling all these people back, doing things that weren't really natural or comfortable. They were really making me work outside where my comfort level or even what I feel good about. And it wasn't working. My insurance business was growing. It was growing at a few customers a month. I was having some real difficulty with finding the right people that would stay, that were honest and loyal and trustworthy, that, after 6 months or 3 months, they'd still be here. They'd still be giving me their business. And in a lot of cases, I never even met them. A lot of stuff today is done over the phone. So I said, this isn't working. I need to get back out and do face-to-face networking. So in 2013, I said, I'm going to really reinvent myself as an insurance agent and really go out and start networking just as that business. And that's what I did. I joined 2 weekly meetings, and I went to those meetings every week. I don't think I missed in that year. I didn't miss 2 weeks, but it was a commitment by me to do that. And I said, I'm going to sit back and see how this works. I'm not going to jump into any leadership role. I'm not really going to do much. I'm just going to kind of show up and see what happens. I was pretty tentative about the whole thing, to be honest about it. And during that year, I found a few times where somebody would come to me and say, how do you know somebody that does something? Do you know anybody that fixes upholstery? And I'd refer them off to a guy in one of my networking groups. Or do you know a mortgage lender that could refinance my house? And I'd refer them off. But I can remember giving 4 referrals that year. It wasn't many referrals. Now, on the other hand, I did receive a few referrals. And those, the business I'm in, and if you're in the insurance business, you know this, people need what we sell. Generally speaking, they have to have it by law or by lender if it's a house. So I did receive a few referrals, but I didn't receive a lot. My conversion of those referrals that I was given to new clients was really pretty good. To get 12 new clients out of 15 referrals was a pretty good story. And I could really see it working, but I was buying a lot of leads. I was spending money. I was taking a lot of time and effort trying to chase people that may not really want to talk to me. So all of a sudden, 2014 came along, and I said, I need to either get in this or get out of it. And I kind of made that statement last January. I was talking to another leader, and I take the lead, and I said, one of 2 things has to happen. I either need to start making this work, or by the middle of the year, I'm going to quit. And I think everybody gets to that point where you feel like network isn't working, and I'm going to go and do something else. Well, I said I'm going to go deep. I'm going to join 4 meetings and go to them every week. I'm going to jump into a leadership role in every group that I attend, and I'm really going to focus on giving referrals. So as you can see from the numbers here, things changed, and they changed rather dramatically. The 4 weekly meetings, I didn't miss many of those, once in a great while. I took that leadership role, and I gave 26 referrals. Now, I think I probably gave a few more than that, but tracking them sometimes when you just see somebody and say, here, this person wants to talk to you. It's hard to remember sometimes. But the important thing for me, and the number that really kept my name in the game, was the fact that I received 86 referrals, and 72 of those referrals became clients. Now, again, if you're in my business, those are great numbers. If you bought 86 leads, you might get 10 that would actually become clients. So this was a really good way to do it. I'm meeting people in person. I'm establishing a rapport with these people, and it's really working. So what made the difference? Well, I think that taking a leadership role in a group is probably one of the most effective things you can do. And every group needs leaders. Every group is looking for somebody. I don't care if it's a Rotary or the Kiwanis Club or the Lions or the Chamber of Commerce or I Take the Lead. It doesn't matter, any of those things. They need leaders. And when people lead, you get to know them more because they're up talking, they're doing things, they're at every meeting, they're taking that level up a couple of notches above just sitting there and showing up. And when you know, like, and trust the leaders, they get more referrals. Leaders get leads. And I think that's so important. One of my commitments this year is that everybody I'm working with in a leads group is going to be a leader. I don't care what they do. I don't care what position they take. All I care is that they're taking a position, they're committed, and they're really starting to make that happen. I know it works. Leaders get leads. It's so important. And then the second, and really probably the most important thing you can do in networking is you start giving more referrals. And as you give more referrals, all of a sudden, this crazy thing happens. When you give a referral, people feel obligated to give you a referral. They feel like, well, gosh, he's helping me. Who can I find? Or all of a sudden the universe opens up, right? And you find people that are looking for just that thing. This law of attractions thing starts to work, and the referrals come around, and you're able to give more referrals. But just handing somebody's card off doesn't work. It needs to be a qualified referral. So give qualified referrals whenever you can. So what's a qualified referral? Well, it's somebody that you know or that you've talked to that's expecting a phone call from the person that you're going to connect with them. That's really important. Make sure that connection's there. Can't tell you how many times over the years I've been given a referral. Well, this person said they'd like to talk to you. Did you talk to them and tell them I would be calling? And usually the answer is no, but they said to call them. So, make sure you make that connection. Make sure the lead's really qualified. And then, even if you can't give a qualified lead, connect somebody. Connect people every time you can. If you see two people in a similar business that could really get along and work well together, that's a great connection. It's not necessarily a lead, but you're connecting power partners, and those power partners can be super strong. So that's definitely something I did last year. And then finally, I changed my mind, and I think the mindset that you're in for going about networking every week is really important. And the mindset that most people get into when they go to a leads group or they go to a meeting every week is that they're thinking about what can I give and what can I receive. And I think if you switch that mindset a little bit to learning and connecting. So I want to learn about you, and then I want to connect you with every person I can that makes sense to help you. That mindset changes the whole way you do networking. All of a sudden you're thinking about, I'm going to sit down and talk to you, not because I want to figure out who you can give me and who I can give you, but I want to learn about you. I want to learn what turns you on, what makes you go, what makes you get up in the morning and do what you do. And all of a sudden things are going to come up. I went to a meeting today at noon, and I listened to the presenter, and she asked us, she basically gave us a test of what she tells people in her coffee date. And I was shocked, actually, I was absolutely shocked. 20, 30 people in the room. How many people knew exactly her history? We remembered that because we were learning from her during that time we had that coffee date. So learning and connecting is really a key factor of becoming a better networker. So here's the tips. The first tip I'm going to talk about is sign up. So what I would suggest is that you commit to at least 2 networking groups every week. Now that can be a formal leads group, that can be a chamber of commerce, that can be a Rotary club, it can be another type of service club. All those things are great, but you're committed and you show up. You sign up and you're there every week. That every week thing really is important. So what you need to do is you need to find groups that meet at times and places that you can commit to being there. If you're in where we live in Vancouver, Portland, if you're in Portland and you commit to a Vancouver group or vice versa, chances are it's going to be hard to be there every week. And we know that. So when you're picking these groups out, when you're finding groups within your community, find groups that are close. Find groups that are on the way to work or in an area where you're going to focus your marketing, where you can go before or after the meeting. Make sure you have areas that make sense, because you want to be there every week. If you don't show up every week, bad things happen, right? Find groups that are power partners. So if you're in a specific industry, there's power partner groups that make a lot of sense. Probably one of the easiest ones are realtors and builders, right? If a realtor joins the local builders association, that's really an easy one. There's a whole bunch of folks in the Builders Association, whether it's contractors or handymen, roofers, all the people the realtors need when they're getting ready to sell a house to clean it up and get it going. they usually belong to those builders associations. So find groups that have power partners. If you go to a group and there isn't a power partner that you would connect with, think twice about it. That might not be the greatest group for you. But if you can find a power partner and invite them to a group, there's another way to do it too, right? That works out great. And then find groups that will help you develop yourself and your business. I know stories about other types of networking where you're required to bring leads and you're required to do certain things every week, where you get fined or you get thrown out or whatever that is. Some of those groups are great, but if they're not presenting something, some knowledge, some education, whether it's personal development or it's business development, you want to join a group that's going to help you grow. So what happens to those groups that don't do that is they get really stagnant. If the people aren't growing, they're not going to be really active and involved. So find groups that have a business or a personal development focus. Find those groups because they're the ones that are going to move and keep moving. Tip number 2 is to show up. Okay, now we talked about signing up. Now you got to be there every meeting. That's a commitment. It goes on your calendar. You put it right in there as an appointment every week. No matter what, you don't overbook that thing unless the person says, this is the only time I can meet with you this year. You make that the most important meeting that you do every week. Just like a sales meeting. If I was your sales manager and you didn't show up for the sales meeting, guess what's going to happen? You're not going to work for me. I know that. Right. So always plan to be early and always stay late, or at least make time to stay late.
I've got a remark on that, Jeff, because I'll notice people, they'll show up late and then leave right away as soon as the meeting's over, and you can't develop relationships by doing that. I mean, not very many people, but it's usually the people that aren't getting referrals or passing any referrals.
Exactly. One of the biggest mistakes people make is to think that networking only happens for 1 hour a week. If you think it's only going to happen 1 hour a week, it will. It'll only happen 1 hour a week.
Yeah.
It's so important to be there a few minutes early, greet guests, talk to everybody, shake their hand, make sure they know who you are, make sure they know that you're there to work and that this is a job for you. This is what you do. And then afterwards, if somebody says, hey, do you have time for coffee, or do you have a couple minutes to talk to me about something, make sure you stay. Make sure you plan time for that. Be prepared and be attentive. If you're going to show up and you're going to be on your cell phone texting, I mean, we all have these distractions today, right? If you're going to be doing those things, don't show up. Be prepared. Bring materials with you. Bring your business cards. Bring something you can hand out. Bring an announcement. Bring something you're doing for your business with you. And then be attentive to the people that are talking. Becky knows I've done a lot of public speaking to groups with I Take the Lead. And once in a while you get somebody in the group that just isn't paying attention. I mean, I really like to shake them up a little bit. It's not always good, but I mean, you've got to keep them awake, right?
Yeah.
So be attentive. Be that person that's smiling and attentive, and they're there. When you're giving your presentation and you're showing up, look at it as your sales force. You're the sales manager of this group. You're going to train them how to sell your product, how to sell you, and how to be able to give referrals to you really easily. This is a job. This isn't just showing up for coffee. This isn't just showing up like a book club or some social gathering. It may be a social gathering. It should be fun, but you're training people how to refer to you. And then be that leader. Man, if you can find any position in a group, I know when I Take the Lead, we have lots of positions. Everybody can be a leader in a group. You can find something to do. If it's greeting people, if it's timing the speaker, if it's preparing the attendance sheet, whatever that is in the group, find something to do. Because people will refer to you and they'll like you quicker and faster, and you'll get more referrals. Tip number 3 is meet up. That's not this website that Becky likes so much. Meet up means that you figure out that every person you meet, you need to meet with outside of the group, right? These one-on-one meetings, I call them coffee dates. It doesn't have to be coffee. You can have tea. You can have whatever you want. But sit down with them in a one-on-one meeting and make sure you do that with everybody in the group that you join. Make an effort to do that. A lot of people aren't ready to do that. They're hesitant to do it. So they don't know what to say. They don't know what to do. Take the lead and invite those people to join you for either coffee or whatever, and sit down and talk to them, learn about them. What's that line? I mean, Ronnie Noyce teaches it so well. You want to learn about them. You want to ask questions. When you call somebody up and want to do a coffee date, you don't say, hey, I want you to learn about me. Come on and meet me for coffee. You say, hey, I want to learn about you so that I can refer to you. I need to know what you do, what you're about, and why I should refer to you so that I've got an in-depth knowledge. When I hear somebody say something, I can refer them to you. So learn about them. First thing you want to do. Then you want to keep those meetings short and meaningful. If you go on, and I've done it, I'm guilty. When you go on a coffee meeting and you're there for an hour and you start talking about all kinds of things that may or may not make sense, you start to lose focus. You want to make that first most important one-on-one meeting really focused. You want to come up with some questions, those 4 or 5 questions you're going to ask, and really get those down. Write them down. Put them in a notebook. I've got one sitting here on my desk for everybody I met last week or last month. And it tells me that those people, what they do, how they do it, and what they're about. What's their elevator pitch? Who's their ideal client? Who are those people looking for so that I can connect them? And when I come back from a meeting, what do? I look at it, I file it, I look at it, and I go, okay, I remember that person now. And then in those meetings, it's never a sales pitch. If you go to that meeting thinking, I'm going to take my brochures, I'm going to go through my products, that's not what it's about. This is really about connecting. It's really about teaching that person that you're with how to refer to you. It's not selling product. It's not moving anybody closer to buying something. It's meeting and getting to know each other. The most important thing that I can tell you about these meetups is this last point here, and that's everybody that you meet with, connect with one other person you know. I call it meet one to connect one. Every time I come back from one of those meetings, I go back through that notebook and I find at least one person that I can send out a 3-way email and say, hi Jim, this is Janet, and I introduce them. And I do that every time. Those can be power partners. If I meet with this morning, I met with an electrician. I've got a handyman and a builder that I'm going to connect him with this afternoon when I get some time. But that's what I do. I make sure that everybody I meet with, they get at least one connection. It may not be a hot referral, it may not be a hot lead, but it's a connection. And when you do that, that guy's going to get that connection this afternoon. He's going to go, wow, this guy's with it. This guy's really, he's not just talking the talk or talking the walk, he's actually doing it. He's out there doing what he says he does. He connects people. I want to be the connector. I want to be that person that really helps people grow their business.
Well, that's great.
Yeah. So if things are slow, here's my secret weapon. Okay, if you get nothing else out of this, here's my secret weapon. When things get slow for me, I've got a stack of business cards. It's about 1.5 inches tall on my desk right now that I haven't really filed or done anything with. When I get ready and I'm slow, I just go, okay, I got a couple of hours this afternoon. I don't have anything to do. I pick up those cards, I just kind of shuffle them, and I grab one. And I call that person and I say, hey, I'd like to sit down and learn more about you so that I can send referrals to you. Would you have time for a 20-minute coffee date? Let's meet over at Starbucks. And I'll tell you what, every time people say yes. And if they don't say yes, they say, well, could we do it in the morning? Or could we do it tomorrow? I'm busy this afternoon. But when I do that, every time that happens, I make a new connection, 1. But 2, I come back and I connect them with somebody. And finally, they feel that law of reciprocation kicks in, and they feel like, well, I got to connect Jeff with somebody. And I meet another person. And all of a sudden, when I look at my calendar and it's empty, I've got people to see. I've got dates. I've got quotes to do. I've got good things to happen.
Well, Jeff, can I ask you a question real quick?
You bet.
Right there, now, when you call them and ask them for a 20-minute date to meet at Starbucks or whatever, do you always keep it to 20 minutes or?
Well, Becky, I allow 30 minutes for that, but I do keep it short.
Okay.
And I think it's really important to do that, because if you go on for an hour and things get unfocused, you need to be focused. We're only here to do one thing. We're here to learn how to refer to each other. We can do that in about 8 or 9 minutes each. But if you start talking about, oh, this product or that thing or whatever, you get unfocused. And
Right.
you really want this meeting to be focused on how can I refer to you, right? So I think it's really important. I found it, if I sit for somebody for 2 hours, the relationship has a different flavor to it than if we sit for 20 minutes and really focus on referring.
Makes sense.
What's your ideal client? Okay, tip number 4, follow up. So what happens? You get to meet these folks, you get to know them. Important, right? I can't tell you how many times people have done this to me. They didn't ask me if I wanted to be on their newsletter, and they send me out. I get a weekly email or a newsletter or something from them. And if they didn't ask me, and if I didn't give them permission, I automatically send them into spam. That's kind of mean, but if you don't ask me, you're not going to be on my. I'm not going to read you, one, and two, I'm not going to let you do it. I have that control, and so do you. So when you finish up your meeting with them, make sure that you ask them, can I put you, I send out a newsletter once a month or once a quarter, or I send out weekly magazine or whatever it is. Ask them. If they say no, respect that. If they say, sure, you can do that, send it to them. Follow up with them on a regular basis. So even if they don't let you send them your newsletter, follow up every 4 to 6 months. Everybody we talk to knows people. I always look at it as when I'm sitting at a table, there's 200 people behind every person at that table. If there's 6 or 7 people at the table, that's a bunch of folks, right? And in the context of things, in 6 months, they're going to hear somebody say, hey, I need a mortgage lender, or I need a whatever it is that you are or that you know. You're going to find somebody to connect with if you give them a call every 4 to 6 months. That's 3 times a year, or 2 times a year. And do it via email or phone. Make sure that you connect with those folks. I had a guy connect with me Saturday that I'd talked to last summer when I spoke at a group, and it was great because we got to talking, and it ended up he knew somebody that needed car insurance, right? So all of a sudden that connection worked. So keep in touch. It's not a one-time thing. I may change what I'm doing too. That may be something that changes over the course of time. And if you change business, or if they change business, or if you change focus, or maybe they change focus, then you need to know that. You may be calling somebody up to say, hey, here's a great referral for, electrical work, and the electrician's turned into a different type of business. Maybe he's doing general contracting. I'd be sending him to the wrong person, right? So you want to connect at least once a year, one-on-one, and sit down. The eyeball to eyeball experience, the ability to sit down and talk to each other and shake hands and look each other in the eye and see what's new. That might be a little bit longer than 20 minutes, but I try to do that in 30 minutes and just find out what's going on, what's changed in your business, what's new, what's your focus this year, what are the 5 things that you're trying to do, what's the ideal client that you're looking for, what are your challenges. If you ever ask anybody that in a coffee date, what are your challenges? And all of a sudden they say, well, yeah, I really need a babysitter for my daughter so I can work on my business more. Wow, there you go. You just found a great referral for them. So, ask questions that are more than just, what do you do? Who's your ideal client? What's your biggest challenge in your work right now? What's your biggest goal in your work? Those are really great questions. And they draw out answers that are more than just the basics, right? So tip number 5, I call it party up. So, we got to celebrate what we do. And I think a couple of ways we can do that is to have a cause. Having a cause is something that all successful networking groups have. You have to be more than just a networking group. You have to be something that gives back to the community. I take the lead. I love it for a couple of reasons, but one is they've got great education with the speakers that come to our meetings, but they've also got Lead with Heart, which is a great cause to help local people have something special a couple of times a year and support local charities. When you look at Rotary or you look at any of their service clubs, that's what they're all about. They're volunteering as a group. You're joining a group to volunteer as a group. And those kind of things are really important because they hold you together. Networking groups without a cause, without an outside cause other than networking, they have a hard time making it. people don't stay very long. And I've joined a number of them, and it's a short-term thing, because as soon as you realize the only reason people are here is to get, then you feel all of a sudden this doesn't feel good. If that group decides to go down to the local homeless shelter and volunteer on a morning after the meeting for a few hours and help people, that's a whole different feeling than if you just show up at 7 o'clock and you're asking each other, what can I do for you? When you have a cause, when you really make an effort as a group or as a member of that group to have that cause, it changes what you're doing. It turns into a bigger celebration because you're doing some fun things that really make sense. So you celebrate all the victories. It doesn't matter how you celebrate them. I mean, there's lots of ideas, whether it's a mixer or a party or a gathering, but you're getting together once in a while on a not 7 o'clock in the morning basis and saying, this is social. We get to have some fun together. A couple of weeks from now, I'm gonna have some fun in my office, right, Becky? I'm gonna have a mix
Right.
in my new office, and I'm like, wow, this is fun. This is what we like to do. But take time to go join those things. You get those mixers, those parties, those gatherings, whatever you want to call them, and other people show up. They're attracted to them. You may meet some really cool people that would never show up at 7 o'clock in the morning, right? But they'll show up to a 5:30 gathering at somebody's office to learn more about the business and networking. I talking to a member of one of my groups this morning. She's gotten 2 leads from a grand opening at a mortgage lender's office. And I'm like, wow, that's cool. She went there just thinking, I'm going to show up just because this person's in my group. And all of a sudden she's gotten a couple leads out of it. So
Wow.
stuff happens when you show up. I used to tell the story, and I went down to a mixer in Portland, and the west side of town, which is a long ways for me, and I've met 2 people that I've done business with since then. So you never know. They may not even be a member of the group. They may just be visiting and looking for some fun. Attend open houses. That's always a fun one. If somebody has a new business, suggest they have an open house. Have some fun at their new business. Have some fun at their new place. The idea that customers will come and celebrate in those. I mean, an open house is a great time. Most businesses are going to invite all their partners. They're going to invite all their customers. They're going to have a variety of people there that you never meet at a morning or a noon meeting. So attend those and celebrate with them. I mean, what a great way to do things. Promote your business and really get out and have some fun. That's the good stuff. So kind of a summary of a couple of the things we talked about here. I just want to run through it real quick, and then we'll open up for some questions. But you need to have a plan to network. Just to say I'm going to go out and network more this year, to say that I'm going to go to some events, to say that I'm going to make it happen, probably won't happen. Most of us lose our goal that we had for New Year's right by the end of January, if not by noontime on New Year's Day. But but when we lose that focus and we say we're going to network, we're going to build things differently, and then we lose it and we don't do it because of whatever reason. It's too easy not to do. What's easy to do is easy not to do. And when you have a plan, when you write it down, when you say, I'm going to join 3 groups or 2 groups by the 1st of February, and I'm going to go to those meetings every week for the next year, I'm going to give this a good go. That's different than saying, yeah, I'm going to get out and network once a week. And I think what you really need to do is to have a plan. Just make it. Just write it down. Write it down right now if you have a piece of paper in front of you. Networking should be fun. And I think that's really important. It's something I know I Take the Lead focuses on, that it's a fun group, but it needs to have a purpose. If you're just showing up to have fun, that's a social date, and that's cool. Got to have those, right? But if you're showing up to network and really get things going, you need to have a purpose. And if that's to meet people, if it's to connect one-on-one after the meeting, I mean, you can make any event into a purposeful event if you just do a little bit of planning with it. I think a lot of the great big events that I've gone to, whether it was a chamber or an industry association, those events are great. They're a lot of fun. But if I don't have a purpose that I'm going to meet one-on-one with every one of those people I just met, it really doesn't go very far. I've got a stack of business cards, and they look really cool on my desk that I've been really busy, but they haven't really gained me anything, haven't connected with anybody. And then you got to be patient. Sometimes it takes a few months before you'll see a referral. I think in high trust positions, and I'd say insurance is a plus and minus in my world. A lot of people look at insurance agents as one step below the used car salesman, but I think in a lot of cases, the insurance salesman you want to do business with, you have to have a high trust with, and to build that trust factor takes some time. And it takes educating people who you are in a really good way. You have to be really consistent about the education you give them. You can't you can't be unfocused. I think about some people I know that are in fairly high trust positions, but sometimes they come off doing two things or not focused. That high trust type position, which we're really all in, it's just how high, right?
Right.
People have to like us and trust us before they're going to do business with us. But if it takes a few months, give it time. Don't expect the first time you go to a networking meeting to come out of the thing with a stack of business cards and call everybody and they're going to say, yeah, by the way, I was thinking about you. I want to do business with you. Probably not going to happen. Give it some time. Build your team.
Can I interrupt you there just real quick?
Yep, you bet.
I just wanted to point out that here in the Portland area, as you know, we've been around actually 15 years this month, and most of our members haven't been around that long, but some of them have been around 10 years or more. And at the new member orientation, I teach the members that I've heard members say, I'm going to give this new insurance agent a year to make sure that they're going to be around a year from now before I'm going to pass them their first referral, because I don't want, they may end up being fired from the company, let go from the company because they didn't meet their numbers or whatever. So I teach that in the new member orientations, that you've got to really, really be patient. And have you seen that yourself, Jeff? I mean, when you became an insurance agent, you already had a lot of clout with a lot of people, but have you seen that for other people?
Well, I'd say two things, Becky. Yes, I have seen it. And I think, first off, people do know, especially if you've been around networking very long, you do know that insurance agents and financial reps in particular go through a period where they have to prove themselves. And if they don't make it, it's usually a year. If they don't make it, they're gone. So yeah, you get that feeling this is a recycling bin almost for people to come and go. So yeah, I saw it. And I saw some people that would say, well, as soon as you decide what company you're going to be with, or you're there for a year, then I'll talk to you.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I've had some of those people that would actually say it. I've had others that, we sat down and met and went through a proposal, and I'm lower priced. I've got a better plan. And they said, well, let me think about it,
Oh.
and a year later you talk to them. But it's behind everybody's mind. How long is this person going to be in my group, and how long are they going to continue to do what they're doing? But I think what's really important though is that as that person, as that insurance agent or financial rep, whatever it is, realtors, it doesn't matter who it is, but as that person, that you really focus on educating the people you're around in your group. Because if you don't educate them, they're going to think you're just like the last guy. Most of these people jump into it. They don't know much. The best thing you can do for yourself to overcome that is to really be the educator, really be the person who brings value and shows what that value is. It's so important. And that's the way I got past it. I mean, if you look at in the insurance world, I'm not the 25-year veteran. I'm still the young guy. I mean,
yeah, that's true.
I did insurance 20 years ago, but that doesn't count.
Yeah.
How long you've been doing it this time? But it's important. And you think about it. Do you really want to do business with somebody that's going to leave next month? I don't.
I don't either. Exactly.
I want to be with somebody that's got my best interests at heart. That's going to be there for a while. Hopefully a few years, maybe longer. So, I mean, you have to present that, and you have to really show people and educate people that you know what you're talking about, you know what you're doing, you know the company. That 10-minute talk that we give on I Take the Lead is so important, but what really sells that whole thing is the one-on-one. So going back to this, just a couple more things here.
Sure.
The if a group doesn't work, find another one. You know, sometimes you go to a group. A tendency for people when they first start networking is to go find free groups because it's the price is right, right? And we don't want to spend a lot of money. And sometimes those free groups, the problem is people don't have much education about how it should work. And sometimes they really, you know, they meet for an hour, hour and a half, whatever, and you never see them again. You never hear from them again. If a group isn't working, find one that works. You know, I always say you got to give them a few months, and if it's just absolutely nobody in the group will have a coffee date with you, nobody is doing anything, you don't hear about any successful referring, they're not talking about referrals, those are groups you want to shy away from. You want to move on. So find a group that works. I know I Take the Lead isn't everywhere in the country, but there's groups that work, and you got to find one that does.
Right.
And you know, most important, and we've talked about it several times, have fun. Enjoy the networking, make lots of new friends. If the worst thing that happened to you by going out and meeting people is that you make new friends, people that you can know, like, trust, and refer to, that wouldn't be a very bad thing. You know, that would be a pretty good thing. So make sure you have lots of fun. Make sure you get out and do networking regularly, and make friends. You know, when you build that team that really knows, likes, and trusts you, you really get to that point where you don't have to go buy leads. You don't have to go fight it. You've got people calling you on a regular basis and sending you emails, introducing you to their friends, neighbors, and family, and all of a sudden, things really change. And I think that's the point we all want to get to. And if you just put together and use a few of these things we talked about today, I think you can get there. So I would open it up for questions if there are any.
Yes, Marilyn, this goes back to when I asked you about, do you keep it to 20 minutes when you set an appointment with somebody to go to meet them at Starbucks? And Marilyn said, what if you both want to stay longer? And I'm also going to ask you about this. What if, and I know what your answers are going to be, but I want to, for those who are wondering, what if the other person is interested in, they say, oh, you know what, Jeff, I can't stand my insurance agent. Would you be my insurance agent? Would you take the time then and there to go ahead and sign them up?
I normally don't. And, you know, there's a couple of reasons for it. One is if that goes too long, right, let's go back to that to start with. If
right.
It goes too long, then you end up in this conversation about things other than business. Because what we want to do is learn how to refer. What I always do is set another appointment, 30 minutes, you know, after that. So I'm never tempted, because it is tempting. I mean, if I sat down with you, Becky, and you said, Jeff, I want to have you be my insurance agent, it's hard to say no. But if I say, Becky, you know, I've got another appointment in an hour, or half hour, I can meet you later this afternoon or tomorrow, and you can bring your insurance stuff and let's sit down and talk about it. You know, it separates the two things. And I think by separating the learning about how to refer to you and then the business, you really keep the two things pure. Because when they start crossing over, it gets so confusing in a person's mind. And then the next time, if I did that to you, I said, yeah, Becky, okay, let's sign you up for insurance, hurry up, write everything down. And then you would come out of that, and a couple of days later, you might be talking to somebody, oh yeah, I met with Jeff, we had this great coffee date, and he signed me up for insurance on the spot.
Yeah.
What's that person going to say to their friend? They're going to say, oh yeah, Jeff's great, but you know, he's selling. He's not learning about me, he's selling at that meeting. And that's just not right. I mean, you need to put some distance, even if it's a couple hours. You need to put some distance between the two things.
That makes total sense.
The coffee date is not the sales date, right? They're two different things.
Yeah, and Marilyn also said great tips, Jeff. So
Well,
Yeah,
thank you.
she's enjoying it. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up. This is a great time. I know we have some insurance agents out there that are on the webinar, and perhaps you've been struggling. Perhaps business is doing really well for you. But we want to hear questions from anybody who has any questions. And you could just, on the side, there's a place where you can just post your questions if you have any. Well, we have, might as well take advantage. We have Jeff right here who can answer your questions. And Marilyn, I just want to ask, did that answer your question okay? And sometimes there's a little time before the
Right.
questions pop up.
So Becky, I'd like to say just a couple things about I Take the Lead too. Excuse me. I've been a member for about 5 years, and I think it's probably one of the most effective ways to network. What you and the team has developed over the years is a way that you can build community within a small group, and it's structured. Because sometimes uh, if you don't structure it, it can go sideways, right? And I think
Right.
the structure and the leadership that you've built for that it really works well. I'm just so happy with the groups I go to.
Well, thank you. Yeah, well, and part of it is you've made the groups because you took on that leadership role, and I know exactly what you're talking about. You got to step up and take on that leadership role, and not just sit around waiting for it to happen. So thank you, Jeff. I've really enjoyed having you. Paul asked a question. He said, "What are some polite ways to leave a conversation at a networking event?"
Well, there's probably some really polite ways and some not so polite, right? You don't say you have to go to the bathroom and not go, right? I mean, if you're going to do that, actually go to the restroom and come back.
Yeah.
I think probably the best way, if you're in that conversation that you need to break free, you have a goal of meeting people at an event, is probably to introduce them to somebody else. It's one of the most polite ways, and it will help them. Obviously don't dump them off on somebody if you're dumping them off, but to introduce them and say, hey, this is my friend Becky, and I know that she is a networking pro. I think you and she would benefit by getting to know each other. I think that's probably the most polite way that at events where I don't know everybody, that's how I do it. I always try to connect people.
Right, and then that goes back to the connecting. That's
Right.
great. Thanks, Jeff. Mary has, and Marilyn said yes, you answered her question. Mary has a question. Referrals are great from your book of business as an insurance agent. I struggle with the initial call. So when she's calling on her book of business, should I do an insurance review or question mark? Just need an opening statement question to ask to pique their interest. She's wondering how to call on her book of business.
On her own book?
Yeah.
Oh, definitely an insurance review. I mean, if you haven't talked to somebody for a while, you want to know where they're at and what they're doing. You want to make sure that that they're properly covered and nothing's changed. I mean, that insurance review is just the obvious, easy question. Then it can lead into, okay, well, yeah, you've got life insurance needs, you've got, whatever, but not to go real deep on that. But definitely that's the best way to lead into a current client is to say, we're doing our annual review. I actually changed my annual review, just something interesting, I guess. I'd been doing it on about a month before renewal, and I actually changed it to alphabetical. So I do certain letters each month. So that just seems to work better. You get a chance to talk to people on a more regular basis.
Oh, okay. So yeah, annual review, and so then they expect to get a phone call or an email from you every year. Then that's right. Good. Thank you, Jeff.
Exactly.
And then Lily, who's out of Boulder, Colorado, says you were talking about power partners, but what if your business isn't industry specific? For example, Lily is a virtual bookkeeper.
Wow. Very cool. I like that. So, who would be a power partner for a bookkeeper? Becky has a great thing in the manual that actually shows all those people. But like a bookkeeper, I can just off the top of my head without finding the manual here on my desk, a bookkeeper would be an accountant, could be an attorney, could be a business coach, could be a
financial advisor.
Yeah. financial advisor, insurance agent, all those people are talking to people about financial things. And a bookkeeper is somebody that I refer to regularly. You know, if I'm talking to somebody about a new business and they're starting up a business and getting insurance for it, I say, well, who's your bookkeeper? And they go, well, my wife does it at night. Well, you know the answer to that. It might not work.
Right.
But there's lots of power partners. Those little what I call columns of power partners are really easy to figure out. And, you know, if you haven't looked at it that way, Lily, I look at it as, you know, who would be people. I know for sure CPAs. They don't normally do bookkeeping. You know, a lot of them. So definitely them, attorneys, anybody in the finance business, whether it's insurance agents or financial reps, those are all great.
Yeah, and usually payroll companies too. Usually they don't do. Some bookkeepers do payroll, but not vice versa. So
Right.
yeah, outsourcing.
Definitely.
Yeah. Good. Scott has a question as well. He says he doesn't have a business card because he's always hated handing them out without first building some relationship. As a new startup, how would you handle this at a networking event?
Well, I'll tell you, Scott, it's tough. If you don't have a business card, it's like, how are people going to get in touch with you? A contact card? Would you consider that? Now, when I say a contact card, that would just be a card with your name and your email and a phone number. You know, you wouldn't necessarily say your business, but if I connected with you and I liked you and I was really, you know, if we talked, I see you're an IT professional. So if you're an IT professional, we talked, had a conversation at a networking event, I'd really like to have your card so I can follow back around with you. IT professionals in particular, in my past experience, they'll never contact me. You know, it's like a no-no for them, I guess. I don't know. But if I connected with you, I'd like to have some way to get in touch with you. So don't look at it as negative. Look at it as a positive way that I can reach back out to you. Because anybody I meet at a networking event, I'm going to send an email to and tell them it was nice to meet them. Can we hook up for that one-on-one coffee date? And if I don't have a way to do it, then it was kind of a wasted conversation.
Yeah. And on the other side of that, we actually, it was an IT person here in the Portland area who came to a meeting and didn't ever pass cards. Well, the people there were guarded. It was like, what is he trying to hide?
Right.
You know, and it was kind of weird. But I find that IT people and computer repair people are easy to refer out. So you want to make sure lots of people have your cards. I would think.
Definitely.
Yeah. Oh, Marilyn says she asks people to put their names and phone number on her iPhone when she takes a selfie.
You know, and that's not all bad. I mean, with some of these things where you can bump your phones and transfer information and all that's
Yeah.
fine. That's fine too. But I mean, the idea of being able to follow back around is, you know, I went to a networking event over the weekend, and you know, I came out of there. I'm just looking. I've got 5 cards. I talked to about 10 people, which I'd say 5 people didn't have business cards, and I'm like, not that it was a bad thing. I talked to them, but I have no way of contacting them unless they call me. And you know, nobody calls an insurance agent, so.
Yeah. I'll call you, Jeff.
There we go. Cool.
Well, Scott said thank you. I know you can read it too, but I just want to make sure everybody else can hear it. So, well, Jeff, we are just about out of time. Now, Jeff has provided his information. If you have any other questions that you want to ask that you were afraid to ask in front of everybody, it's Jeff Mays, and you can reach him. His email is jeff@jeffmays.us. Make sure you use the US. And his phone number in Vancouver is 360-718-9707. And I want to thank you, Jeff. I really appreciate it. I took notes, and I got a lot of great information out of it. And I know I've seen you. I've really seen you grow your brokerage. I even had. I'll continue to try to refer insurance agents who are looking for a new home to you. So I know that they'd be in really good hands with you. So. Again, thank you, and thanks everybody for being on the call or on the webinar. We are going to end it, and happy networking. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.